Yo, book nerds, I finished reading FREEWATER by Amina Luqman-Dawson. This is a middle grade historical fiction novel. It might be middle grade, almost into young adult, but I personally would categorize it more middle grade. But I loved this book. I thought it was great. So FREEWATER is about this hidden civilization. The story takes place in the South before the Civil War, so there is still slavery, and FREEWATER is a civilization hidden in the swamps of runaway slaves. So this story follows Homer. Actually, this story has a few different narratives. You switch perspectives quite frequently, but I still believe this is Homer's story mainly because Homer's perspective is the only one told in first person. All the other perspectives are in third person. So even though we're not always with Homer, he's kind of the main character, in my opinion anyway. So Homer is a slave boy, and him and his sister and his mother attempt to run away from the plantation that they live on. Homer and his sister Ada escape, but their mother is captured and taken back to the plantation. Homer and Ada make it to FREEWATER, which, like I said, is this hidden civilization in the swamps, and it's made up of runaway slaves, but also these slaves have had children, so there are children in FREEWATER that have never been outside of FREEWATER. They're not slaves, they were born in FREEWATER, and they've never seen anything else. They haven't seen any plantations or anything outside of the swamps. And it's very, very interesting because you can see like a contrast between these children that are born in FREEWATER and the slave children that run away. The children born in FREEWATER are much more energetic and free-spirited, while runaway slave children have this fear. They ask permission before doing anything because they're used to asking their master permission for things. Those habits are hard to break. They're fearful of being recaptured. They're fearful that they will die or be severely punished if they're caught. There's so many like interesting pieces of this book that I want to dive into, so if you don't want to know anything else besides that, I will give you a spoiler alert right now. But that is the basic premise of the book. I want to dive deeper now. So there's a lot of parallels going on between FREEWATER and the plantation that Homer has run away from. In FREEWATER, they're planning a wedding for this couple. Meanwhile, back at the plantation owner's daughter is getting married, so they're planning a wedding there. And you can see the differences between these two weddings going on at the same time. There are also contrasts, and I want to read a quote here. So there are also contrasts, obviously, between FREEWATER and this plantation that we bounce back and forth from. So there's a character named Mrs. Light, and she's a runaway slave, and she's talking to her daughter, Sansi. And Sansi was born in FREEWATER. And so she's explaining some things to her, and they're talking about like harvesting food to eat. And she says to Sansi, remember, don't, and then Sansi interrupts her and says, don't take all, only what the plant can give. Mrs. Light then says, out there, meaning the plantations, out there they take and take from the land. They use us to do it. Only ugly comes from that land. And so like they're comparing, contrasting how they work for the land in FREEWATER and they only take what the land can give them, and it's like this equilibrium. Meanwhile, out on the plantations, they're forced labor and they are worked to death, and they're driven into this land that they're working on, and it's just obviously evil. And so like you can see that contrast between the two there. The people in the swamp, they have respect for the earth, and the plantation owners are greedy. They not only take more than the earth can provide, but they take human lives as well. This book, while intended for middle grade, obviously doesn't show the harshness of a lot of what real slavery was like, but it does show some of it. Like, they talk about the death of a baby and the pain. I actually teared up reading that, like the pain of the mother losing her child. And I can't imagine, like, I teared up because I'm a mom, and like, you'd do anything for your kids. And in real life, so many mothers were separated from their children. They watched their children die or be sold off. And it works both ways, fathers too. I'm just using this, I'm just saying mother because I am a mother. But like, families were destroyed by slavery, and that is hit on in here. And in more ways than one, there's another character named Billy who escaped with his dad to FREEWATER, and they had to leave Billy's mother behind. And they now don't know where his mother is. And Billy's father has met someone new in FREEWATER. It's been years that they've been here. He's met someone new, and they're the ones getting married. And Billy is happy for his father, but he's also grieved because his father isn't with his mother. And it just is so complex. Like, I can't imagine what Billy is feeling at all this. This complexity is very rooted in real events that slaves went through. And FREEWATER is actually like based on real encampments that existed of slaves. And while reading this, even like, I didn't really know that this actually existed in real life, but while reading it, I actually thought of the movie Defiance, which is about, if you're unfamiliar, about Jews hiding in the woods during World War II. So like, people are resilient and they are going to survive. It just is such a testament to me, like, that slaves could do this back then, and Jews did this in World War II. So this is very much like a real thing. Like, this definitely could have happened and did happen, and this isn't just something made up and fantastical. So it reminded me of Defiance, which I've seen the movie, I haven't read the book, but this book also did remind me of another book that I've read, which is called Running Out of Time. Let me see, I've got it here somewhere. Here it is, Running Out of Time, which is by Margaret Peterson Haddix. And what reminded me of this book, so in this book, you have a girl who is seeing modern technology for the first time. And in FREEWATER, Sanzi leaves FREEWATER and she goes to a plantation, and she's never seen glass before. She's like, what is that on the, like, there's something on the windows. Like, she's never seen a house as big as the plantation before. Like, her mind is completely blown, honestly. Sanzi realizes just how sheltered she was back in the swamp. She has no idea what so many things are. When she sees them, she's overwhelmed. And so I'm not going to explain why Sanzi goes to the plantation. You'll have to read it to find out. I don't want to spoil too much. But this story was just wonderful. Sanzi is my favorite character, even though Homer is the main character, I would say. Sanzi is so sheltered. She doesn't understand what her mom is trying to protect her from. Her mom never wants her to leave FREEWATER for good reason. She doesn't want her daughter to be captured and become a slave or killed, you know? It's very understandable why she doesn't want her to leave. But Sanzi is craving adventure. She wants to get out. She wants to make her own life. She doesn't want to just do what her mom tells her, which is also, again, understandable. But she's a kid and she's impulsive and she doesn't understand things. Like, I think her growth through this story is wonderful. And I read this for class, and many other students in my class didn't like Sanzi, but I loved her because they thought she was like young and dumb. And I mean, she is, but she makes mistakes and she tries to fix them, and she owns up to her mistakes and grows from it. And that's why I love her so much. Overall, this book was a great read. I flew through it, and the ending like left me hopeful, but yet there's still elements of danger lurking there. You don't know what becomes of FREEWATER in the end. Like, you don't know if they're ever discovered. You don't know if they eventually make it to the north. Like, the story wraps up in a satisfying way, but yet you're still left wondering what's going to happen next. And I really enjoyed this book. If you've read this, let me know your thoughts. I really think it's worth the read. And I think this is a great option for students to read when learning about slavery versus like trying to have them read Uncle Tom's Cabin. I think Uncle Tom's Cabin is a great book, but I think this book would reach more kids than Uncle Tom's Cabin. My opinion. Or it could be a good companion. Students could read this first and then read Uncle Tom's Cabin. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. That's all I have for you this week. Please hit like and subscribe to my channel if you're not, and I will talk to you again soon. Thanks for talking books with me.